Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about I Am Frankie. This show ran for 2 seasons, from that of 2017 to 2018, and it's actually my favorite live action Nickelodeon series. I don't watch a lot of live action Nickelodeon stuff or animation for the most part. I watched a bit more animation, like, Danny Phantom, Fairly Odd Parents. That's about it. But when it comes to live action, I've only ever watched iCarly and what's her name? True Jackson. And those really were the only two, live action Nickelodeon shows I've ever watched from, I guess you could say, like, recent modern era, from a few years back. But, back in the day, I used to watch, like, Hey Dude and stuff like that. But I've always been more of a Disney Channel fan. But anyway, this is my actual favorite, like, Nickelodeon show. And I'm so sad that it only lasted for 2 seasons and it ended on a cliffhanger of all things. Cause and this is actually a Nickelodeon show I finished all the way through because I finished True Jackson all the way through, but when it comes to iCarly, I skipped a couple of seasons and episodes, but I watched the finale and the movies. I just started to tune out of that show. I did watch Sam and Cat, but I just watched a couple of episodes of that. But I Am Frankie was a really different and unique and interesting show. It reminds me of Small Wonders. Small Wonders was a show that came out about in the 80s or so, and it was about a little girl who was an android robot, and her family tried to pass her off as a real girl. The neighbor girl was really nosy and trying to figure out what's going on, and the girl acted very robotic and everything. And she talked like really slow, and she always wore like this dress. I think it was like a red dress with white stockings or something like that. And, they kept trying to do their best to make her, act like a normal girl, but it was really hard for her. And it was a really popular show back in the day. And so this automatically made me think of that. But the thing is, when I Am Frankie came out, I didn't even know this show existed. I was watching Watch Mojo, and they was talking about this amazing show, and I'm like, oh, what is this? So I went and got on the Nickelodeon app, and I just started watching it, and I fell in love with this show. And then after doing some research, it turns out that this show is actually based off of a Colombian show, a Nickelodeon Colombian telenovela show. That series is called, I might butcher this, Yo So Frankie, and it starred Maria Gabriela as Frankie. And it lasted for 2 seasons, but the second season was broken in half because they had a lot of episodes. And for the most part, it is very similar to the I Am Frankie American remake show. And like a lot of the characters are based off of those people. But it goes further into because it lasted for a lot more episodes and stuff. Whereas I Am Frankie lasted for only 40 episodes. And so they couldn't really finish out some of the stuff that the other show did. And, and I will explain why this show got canceled, because I've been wondering for the longest time, why did this show get canceled? It was very popular. It had some pretty good ratings and stuff. So what exactly caused it to, get the axe? And one of the stars of the show finally revealed what happened a few years ago and stuff. But anyway, so this show is very much like, Small Wonders, where it's a android who's a teenage girl, and she's trying to develop human emotions and act more human. And since it's based off of the telenovela thing, they go more of a sci-fi route, which this show does as well. Now, I will say, for 2 seasons, season 1, I like both seasons. Like, I really enjoy both seasons, but I feel like season 1 felt more emotional because it was that of a robotic girl trying to be human and falling in love with a boy and stuff. But then you get to season 2 and it kind of ups the ante. Then you get into like, corporate organization trying to take over the world, weaponize robots. You even get a story arc where people find out about the androids and they don't want them around and they form a hate group and everything. And that was something really interesting that they did. I was very shocked that Nickelodeon would go that far. But in typical Nickelodeon fashion, they didn't do it the way properly they should have. This is Nickelodeon. It is a comedy show and stuff. And so, and also a couple of characters from season 1 completely disappear from season 2, and one person gets a complete name change and everything. Personality shift in season 2, and it doesn't really feel all that much like season 1. It feels like a completely different show, which I feel like if they would have lasted for multiple seasons, then they should have did the season 2 story arc and everything instead of like rushing and doing it in season 2. Because the thing about this show is that the premise was an android girl trying to be more human and stuff. And that was a really interesting concept that really resonated with, older, Small Wonder fans. And also that of Commander Data from Star Trek, which the lead actress who plays Frankie, Alex Hook, my God, give that girl an award, man, and give her more TV show opportunities. But here's the thing about the show. The entire cast is great. These are some good actors and actresses and stuff. They really committed to their roles and they feel so realistic. Problem is, they don't get no work after this show. In fact, the youngest girl who played the sister and everything, Jenny, this is her only acting role. And also, the girl who plays Tammy, I think she's only done 2 things. And a couple of the other stars on this show, they've only had like 1 role after this or none at all. I do not understand this. Even the lead actress, who I think was phenomenal in this role. She really talked like a robotic person and stuff. She really talked and act she reminded me so much of Commander Data from that of Star Trek Next Generation. And I don't understand how in the world she doesn't get that many acting opportunities. She is on the show now, but she plays the younger version of an older character in flashbacks. I don't know how many episodes she's actually in or how much screen time she gets. But I don't understand why Hollywood isn't trying to rope in these stars and everything, especially Nickelodeon, because if it was Disney Channel and say the show got canceled, they would still branch out to some of their stars and try to put them in other Disney Channel projects, other shows that were getting the pilot picked up, or original movie. Here on Nickelodeon, it ain't like that. Unless you're back in a decade ago, a decade and a half ago, around the True Jackson and the iCarly days, when they would put Jeanette McCurdy in have her guest star in everything, and have Victoria Justice guest star and everything. But other than that, man, they don't do that much. Once they're done with you at Nickelodeon, they're done with you and stuff. And it's really shocking and disappointing because I would have thought for sure Nickelodeon or Disney Channel would have picked up the girl who played Jenny Gaines and everything, because she has that youthful, exuberant type of personality and everything, and she's still young. And, I don't get that. And then not only that, but then we find out in season 2, 2 of the stars can actually sing. And if this was a decade and a half ago, Nickelodeon would be trying to make them big professional singers and everything. But they don't do that no more because they stopped trying to copy Disney Channel. Which is, when it comes to Nickelodeon, their shows are very much different than that of Disney Channel. It's something I can appreciate, but I just can't get into. I've been trying to watch a couple of older Nickelodeon shows that are on Paramount Plus. And I just can't get into some of them. Most of them are from other countries that, that aired in America. But I just can't get into them, Hunter Street and some witchy type telenovela show they had. And I just can't get into those and stuff. And, So I think it's a disservice that they're not trying to like, hire this cast and stuff. Now the older stars on the show, they get lots of work. And the guy who plays Cole Reyes, the last thing I saw him in was that Pretty Little Liars reboot. But they had him playing a terrible character. And I'm just like, dude, why you gonna have him play like that type of character for? But anyways, so yeah, this show lasted for 2 seasons and it had 40 episodes. And so basically the premise is that Sigourney Gaines, who is a scientist, she creates an android, not just any android, but the most perfect android there is. There have been other versions she's tried to create, but there was something wrong with them. And so she didn't want like the company she works for called Egg to have like Frankie. And because she wanted to keep it for herself, and she was afraid they might misuse her or use her for some type of like, nefarious type things. So she snuck her out, and her family moved halfway across the country to where she relocated with an old friend of hers named James Peters and stuff. And he's a scientist as well who used to work for Egg. And they both like, remain off the grid because Egg is a really bad place and stuff, right? Now, I've talked about the first episode, so go watch that. And so, like, basically, they take Frankie in as, like, their own daughter, and they love her to death. It takes a little while for the youngest girl, the biological girl, Jenny, to, like, get attached to her. She does like, typical like, young like kid angst type stuff, like, blackmails Frankie or use her and her special abilities and stuff like that, do her chores and stuff. But she does learn to grow and love her like a sister. But one odd thing is that like the mom, she tends to treat Frankie more like her real daughter than she does her actual daughter. It would have been nice to have some conflict and stuff. Like, to show that like Jenny would like, be upset about that or something, but it's never ever shown. So that was a huge missed opportunity in my opinion. It would have been nice to have that drama because for the most part, even though this is like, a kid's show, it's not your typical wackadoo, like, kid show and stuff. It's slightly a bit more like, mature and everything. And that's the real cool thing about it. There's no laugh track, which I really like and enjoy. And so, like, when it comes to the show, so it's like basically the first season revolves just mostly around Frankie pretending to be like, a real girl. And she's learning step by step. And I do love watching the growth and development of her learning stuff, because this is set like in the modern day. She has like Wi-Fi and all this other stuff. And so she's always able to get on the internet and research things. But, things are difficult for her to understand. That's where her best friend, Dayton Reyes, comes in. Basically, when she meets Dayton, Dayton has no idea who or what she is. And those two bond instantly. And then when Frankie looks it up on the internet, and because they're friends and they get along so well, she assumes that that's her best friend for life. So she's constantly calling her BFF. And Dayton is an amazing friend and everything. When she does find out what Frankie is, she never tries to like use her. She just accepts her for who she is and stuff. And Dayton is the truest best friend I've ever seen in like, one of these like kid shows and everything. She goes beyond and belief out her way to keeps Frankie's secret a secret, even though Frankie keeps trying to tell everybody, because her mom like programmed her to like, never tell a lie, but also never expose herself. So when people ask her, are you an android or what's your secret? She's not supposed to tell, but she's also not supposed to lie. So she always end up almost telling the truth. And that's when Dayton comes in and has to like, Dayton's a great liar. She is always having to answer for people and all this other stuff to like throw people off their scent. And even when they find out to be other androids, she goes all mother hen, having to protect them and Frankie. So she is like the truest like best friends. And of course, there is a couple of antagonists in this show. One's this smart girl at school, and the other one is like this corporation called Egg. Egg wants her back, but also like Tammy wants to like expose her secret because Tammy's very jealous and stuff. And so that's the basically the premise of the entirety of the first season. Then you get into the second season, and like I said before, it completely turns things like around. Egg in the first season tried to sell her the Warper, which is a program that tries to weaponize androids. And so the other android boy ends up getting like caught. And basically it's this huge take over the world government conspiracy thing. Some of the pacing is a bit off because you abandoned the whole her trying to be more human type thing. And now she's trying to prevent this company from like taking over, this organization from like taking over and stuff. And it's a bit more action packed with some really cool choreography and everything, but it does feel miles differently from that of the first season. Andrew is another android and Simone is another. And so then they end up like introducing two new characters that replace the other two characters from last season. And it's weird because when they completely wrote those characters out, they just said, oh, they left. That's it. And it's like nobody brought them up. Like one had a crush on one and the other one was best friends with one. And it's just kind of like, they just disappeared. Also, antagonist from first season turns out to be protagonist in the second season because it gets like really crazy and stuff. Basically, Warpa is doing everything they can. And then when you find out who's in charge of Warpa, it's kind of like, why'd you go to all this like elaborate like plan stuff and you could just grab her right then and there? Like it don't make no sense and everything. So the second season has a bad pacing problem, and also it has like things in it that don't always make sense. And then when it ends on the cliffhanger, then you're kind of like, oh my god, well what's gonna happen next type thing. And so everything else doesn't make no sense after that. And so I don't know. I feel I wish this show could have got more seasons, and then that way season two, could have happened much later and stuff. And so, with all that said, let's get into some character profiles. But before I do, man, I love the intro song. It's short. I wish it was longer. I think there's a longer version somewhere, but it's amazing. It's a great song, and stuff like that. And so let's get into like this show. Now, I'm not quite sure who created the show, but the producer is Danny Mendoza, and there's two other executive producers. So most likely the producer is the one who created it, or just like backing it with money. So Alex Hook plays that of Frankie Gaines, and Frankie is the android who's trying to be like a real life girl. And so like she goes to Covia High, and it's really cool to see her interact with people. She has a really unique speech pattern. Like she'll say something like, my name is Frankie Gaines, and I go to Socorvia High. Like she kind of pauses when she talks, but the thing is like it's funny because somebody will be all like, well, aren't you like a barking dog or something like that? Somebody was saying, she was all like, I am not a barking dog. I am an adolescent teenager. She always makes sure she corrects people because they'll use like an old term phrase against her, and she doesn't understand it because she doesn't really understand like emotions and stuff. And so like, she always corrects people all like, I am not a duck. I am not a dog. I am not a boy and all this other stuff. So it's kind of fun to see her snap back at people like that. And so since she doesn't understand emotions, she just mimics the other emotions other people do. So if she sees a bunch of people laughing, she'll laugh in a really odd kind of way, like ha 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 ha, like that, you know? Like when I say she is perfect as like playing this android, like I am not kidding, man. She needs more credit than what she was given. And so she has a really interesting hairstyle where her bangs go to like one side of her head, which is funny because it changes in season two when season two only takes place a couple of seconds after season one. And so like um she basically just like, hangs out with Dayton Reyes. Dayton is her BFF. Now, with her weird speech pattern, she also has a unique way of saying people's names. Like Dayton is Dayton's first name and Reyes is her last name. And so whenever Frankie addresses somebody, she says both names. So she's constantly calling people like Dayton Reyes or Cole Reyes. And at first she starts calling her mom Dr. Mom because her mom's a doctor and technically her mom who created her. Until her mom says, like, just call me mom, and that's what she does. But then she calls, like, her sister Jenny Gaines, and it's just kind of like it's weird. So people pick up on that and think something's wrong with her, which causes that one girl to think she's an android. And so, like, starting off very early in the season, she sees Cole Reyes, which is Dayton Reyes' brother. And she instantly, it's like love at first sight. Like she see him and she's smitten by him, which is weird because she's not supposed to have emotion. But Sigourney programmed her to mimic other emotions. And, she wants to see the progress of seeing if Frankie can become more human. And so her program is constantly evolving beyond that of her comprehension and stuff. And it even surprises that of like, her mom and everything. And so she starts to crush on Cole. And so when Dayton explains, like, do you like him or do you like him? When she realized what like means, she constantly says that in the series. I like this person and stuff like that. And it's really catchy the way she talks and everything. You can't help but to want to say it and everything. Especially like Dayton. Like I never call Dayton. I am for this video, but I always call her Dayton Reyes because it just sounds cooler and everything. And so so she has super strength and all these cool abilities. She can have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and she has holographic projections through her eyes and everything. In season 2, they decided to give her a different feature where her hand can glow red and burn stuff. And so when she's at school, of course she's super smart. And this pisses off the girl named Tammy. And so Tammy used to be the smartest person in school. And so this causes a lot of conflict between those two. So basically all season, she's just trying to keep her secret. And Tammy's constantly trying to expose her secret. Trying to have sleepovers to expose her, all this and that. And she has a USB port in the back of her neck. Now, when things start to get a little bit worse for her because Egg found out that they can tap into the older androids and they can sync up, and then Frankie is basically following the protocol of heading back to Egg. So after almost getting exposed and this and that, you know what I'm saying? She constantly gets rescued. And so her mom is constantly telling her, stay away from Cole because, you like him and he likes you and he might find out what you are, but she can't not want to hang out with Cole, and it frustrates her. And so throughout season 1, there's a couple of mentions of a girl named Eliza. The parents of Frankie keep saying, I hope she doesn't turn out like Eliza, or the whole Eliza situation. And so it's kind of like, well, who the heck is Eliza and stuff? And so at the end of season 1, because Frankie is so smart, she joins the brain squad and everything. And when she joins the brain squad, at one point she's almost not able to go because she's constantly getting grounded because she lies, and her mom can actually look at her memory files, and she doesn't want that because she's been doing things she ain't supposed to be doing. And other than going to the school dance and the Halloween costume and this and that, and really enjoying herself at the school dance and stuff, Warpa is after her doing the brain squad thing. So her and Cole escape, and they head out like into like the next city and stuff. While that is happening, Eliza shows up, and Eliza is literally Frankie's identical twin. So basically, Sigourney was like, creating androids and naming them after the alphabet. And so like, but the other three androids don't look nothing like Frankie, and they are basically like beta projects and stuff. Oh, also Frankie can communicate with machines and stuff and talk to them. And she has a fondness for robotic stuff. If a robot gets damaged, she gets like emotionally upset. So anyway, Eliza shows up. Eliza is straight up evil. Basically, when Sigourney was trying to put human emotions in her android, she put way too much into Eliza, and Eliza just picked up on like the bad traits. Now, the Eliza subplot is very interesting, but it gets abandoned very quickly in season 2. She shows up at the first episode, the first 2 episodes of season 1, in season 2. And basically, she's pretending to be like Frankie, and she's basically a girl with attitude, and she thinks she's better than all humans and stuff. Basically, when she escaped that of Egg, she roamed the entire world committing crimes. So she's back trying to find like the Gaines family because she wants a new face and everything. And so, like, she takes the family hostage and she pretends to be Frankie. Then her and Frankie like fight and all this other stuff. And Sigourney, for whatever, however smart she's supposed to be, gives in and creates a new face for her. Now, one of the ways they know she's fake is because her USB drive is in her actual thumb as opposed to her neck. So at some point, her and Frankie fight. And when she wants Frankie shut down permanently, they look at like Frankie memory files and stuff, and it starts to overload that of Eliza to the point where she gets shut down. So then they're gonna reboot her and try to reprogram her, only for her to escape. And when she escapes with her new face, we never see her again after the second season. She's never seen, she's never mentioned. The family never goes looking for her, even though she commits all kind of crimes and stuff. And it was just a weird thing to introduce this character and not do much with her or constantly bring her back for season 2. I guess the CGI, like, they had to like have a budget and they couldn't do like 2 people in the same room constantly. So, but still, it was just a missed opportunity and a very odd one at that. And when Warper and Egg are trying to look for androids, why in the world didn't they look for her? And so, like I said before, in season 1, it was just cool. It was cool to see Frankie adapt and do all this stuff and have all these problems. Like, there's always a problem going on with her. She's not supposed to be in the rain because it can mess up her circuits. But then, when she sees Cole Reyes in the rain, she can't help but to want to move because she just wants to stare at him all day. And her circuits start to get a little fried. Then she's not supposed to eat because she doesn't have a stomach, but then she starts to mimic humans and she tries to eat, which causes a problem because people at school wondering why she never eats and everything. So they had to create an eat stomach for her so she can digest foods and stuff. Then there was a time when she had to go to Brain Squad and her vocal cords got messed up because I think she drank liquid or something like that. And they had to make a new one for her out of a 3D printer at school, which they weren't allowed to, so they had to hurry up and do it. And so when you get in season 2, she's, trying to avoid Warpa and everything. She befriends another android by Andrew LaPierre. And so he gets captured in her place because he rescues her and stuff. See, in the season 1, he was created by James Peters, the friend of Sigourney and Gaines. And so because of that, he caused all this havoc at school and blamed her. And so first she was starting to get blamed until somebody else got framed for everything. And so like she has to, that's what I love about season one. She's constantly trying to like hide her secret, this and that. But then in season two, so she breaks him out of the facility. And her and Dayton are pretty smart. Like they create robo roaches and everything with video cameras to cause a distraction so that they can break into this highly sophisticated organization. And, you know, when people, of course, see the cockroaches, they smash them, and it really upsets, like, Frankie. And in season two, one thing I noticed that I thought was, like, weird was that the actress started acting a bit more emotional and stuff like that. And I'm just kind of like, okay, maybe she feels like talking in that monotone style will hurt her chances of getting a role, so she started acting more like, you know, emotional and human-like. And her character does start acting more and more emotional to where she has like a temper tantrum and everything, which is really odd, and she wasn't mimicking nobody's behavior. And so throughout season two, you have to pay close attention to the way the actress talks, because she starts to talk more human and everything. Even when she says, like, you know, this one android named Simone doesn't have a last name, and it frustrates her and everything. And it's just kind of like, that's weird to say, like, is that bad writing or like what, you know? And so basically, her mom goes off into space, and then she's in the care now of one of her mom's friends. I forget her name. Something Mandel. Cynthia, I think. Yeah, Cynthia Mandel. And so she, you know, takes care of all her maintenance problems and this and that. And so after busting like Andrew and like Simone, I think Simone her name is, out, basically it's just back to the high school type stuff. But it's not back to the high school stuff so much of her trying to keep a secret, because once Andrew gets exposed, she wants to expose herself because she feels it's not fair. So basically throughout season two, you know, she's just trying to figure out what Warper master plan is, all while still crushing on Cole, while having a crush also on Andrew, which causes problems. And, you know, she's also trying to star in the school play. After Warper like blackmails her into like, you know, working for them, because they'll like hurt her family and this and that, she tries to destroy their organization and everything, which, you know, with the help of her friends, she's able to. And while doing the school play, her and Cole finally, you know, express their true feelings for each other, and they kiss. And the most bizarre thing happens. You see inside her circuitry in her chest, and a holographic heart forms and it starts beating. And then she's all like, you know, I'm experiencing this weird like feeling I have never like experienced before, and she doesn't know what's going on. And it ends just like that. And it's kind of like, well, whoa, what's going on with this heart thing inside her? Is it a hologram? It can't be nanobots because she don't have that. And I doubt it's a real organic one because it looks holographic and everything. So it ended on the strangest cliffhanger. When I looked at the Colombian show webpage, it basically says now that she has a heart, she's half human and half android. And some more stuff started like, you know, going on in the season. So they would have built on like that and this mysterious character from like the future and stuff. And so it was such a missed opportunity because it ended on such a fascinating cliffhanger too, actually. And so like, you know, I really wanted to see what this whole heart thing was going to be about. Because, and that explains now why she was so emotional in season two when she gets like frustrated in the way she talks differently. And it's because she was literally developing real human emotions, but they don't really explain how until you see like the end and everything. And so like, why did her program decide to like make that? Dayton Reyes. So Dayton Reyes is a cool character, like a great best friend and everything. She's the sister of Cole. And so her and Frankie do everything together. And it seems like, you know, Dayton doesn't have like any friends in like that school because you never see her hang out with anybody before Frankie got there. And so she is the biggest mother hen because she has to take care of Frankie, make sure she doesn't expose her secret. When things are wrong with her, she helps like print things out in the 3D printer to like help her out and everything. So she goes beyond a normal friend would do for somebody. That's her BFF and everything. And she's such a cool character. And it sucks that the actress doesn't get that much acting work and stuff. And so, like, in season one, she crushes on a guy named Byron. Byron is like this nerdy kind of guy who builds robots, and he built the robot named Bob. And so Byron is best friends with that of her brother Cole and everything. And so throughout the entire season, she's crushing on him. Her and Frankie try to like make him chocolate chip brookies, which are cookies and brownies. And they have like a weird thing they do talking about, is it a cookie? Is it a brownie? That's what makes it so fun. And they have this weird like gesture they do with it. And so, like, when she finds out Frankie's secret, she keeps it to herself until Frankie's family finds out. But you know, it's interesting because in season two, Byron completely disappears. Apparently, he just leaves. And so then she has a new love interest in the new character named Zane. And what's so interesting about that is both Byron and Zane are black. She's down for the brown. Now, if only life would imitate art and everything. And so, like, in season two, while she's trying to help Frankie with the whole Warper situation and everything, she is crushing on Zane to the point where she lies to him and says that, you know, she's in the theater and she's the producer because he's in the theater and everything. So they come up with like a play, and she has no idea what she's doing, but she's doing the best she can. And so, other than that, it turns out that her father is actually the head of Egg, and he, you know, tried to capture Frankie in season one. By season two, here's what's so weird about this. In season one, it seems like their parents are together, but in season two, it turns out they're divorced. And so in season one, she lived with her mom while he was off in a different like state doing the egg stuff, but she never knew what he did because he lied about it. And so in season two, they live with him, but then we never get to see their mom and everything, so which is kind of odd and weird. Basically, at the end of season two, you know, she tells Zane that, like, you know, she likes him, that's why she lied, and there's no ramifications of that. He's just happy that somebody likes him, and, you know, and like stuff like that. And so, you know, let me get through some minor characters first. There's Byron. He builds robots. He builds a robot named Bob. Frankie's able to communicate with Bob, and it turns out Bob is not a boy. She's a girl and everything. He's on Brain Squad. He's very nice, very sincere, and very soft-spoken. And so he's on Brain Squad and everything, but he's basically Cole's best friend. But, you know, he's cool because, you know, not only is he Cole's best friend, he's also the love interest of Dayton, and he also builds robots. And when his robot gets destroyed, this is when Frankie gets blamed for everything and stuff like that. But then he just completely disappears in season two. His name is never even mentioned except for one time to say he left. And that's just so odd they would do that. And then they replaced him with another black character. If they was going to do that, they should have just made that black character the new Byron. But they made him into Zane. Zane shows up in season two, and for the most part, he really doesn't have no real significant role in the show. He's just there to be Dayton's, like, you know, love interest, and that's it. He's really into theater, and so he's trying to make this play as perfectly as he can. And that's really all he does and stuff in season two. There's Rachel, who's brought in to be like the Robbie replacement. She is a hardcore gamer. Like, she loves playing video games and won't stop for nothing unless something really, really, really intrigues her. And it's to the point where, like, Frankie and Dayton will use her to like break into like Warper files that they have on the flash drive and stuff like that. And they lie to her and say it's like coding for like a video game and stuff like that. And she's extremely good at what she does. She also loves androids to death. When she finds out Andrew's an android, she tries to be like his best friend and his big support group. And when there's a hate group created by Tammy, she creates like an alternative group that supports androids and stuff. There's Mrs. Huff, who's the principal, a very stern one at that, and she is obsessed with cats, constantly having her cats on campus, and she's constantly giving people detention. And she believes whenever there's bad behavior, she gives them a cat to like rub and talk about, doesn't this calm your nerves and everything like that. The adults in this show pretty much make up the humor in this show. These are the two lab assistant networks for Warpa. Pretty much they are on Tammy patrol. Basically, when Tammy was fitted with like this electronic device that takes over her cognate functions, they take over and speak for her and stuff. And it's funny because they try to speak in like teenage slang and it comes off so cringy, but it's so hilarious at the same time. Like amaze balls and stuff. And yo, what up, dog? And all this crap. Like the way they say it is just like hilarious. The guy's nice, the female's nice too, but the female is the senior superior and she wants to be a cyborg and everything. Like she just wants like robots to take over the world. There's Michaela and her best friend who name I forget, Lucille, I think. And they are Tammy's like two best friends and minions. They're extremely highly smart, but Michaela's more comedic and she acts like she's dim-witted, but she's really not. And then Lucille, she's more like very proper when she speaks, and she's very highly intelligent as well. They're basically minions and stuff of like Tammy. Whatever Tammy wants done, they do it even though they don't want to do it. And but they always have a scientific way in the first season of like doing whatever Tammy wants. Like when Tammy suspects that, you know, Frankie might be an android, they use scientific methods to kind of like trick everybody into like testing their ears for like electronic device or something like that. And so, but then by the second season, they're kind of just pushed to the side for the whole Warpa storyline. And basically in season 2, they spend the entire time trying to figure out what's wrong with Tammy and why she keeps talking in slang. They use less scientific methods and they mostly are just minions by season 2 and don't really act all that intelligent. Then afterwards, you know, they're trying to get people to join the brain squad, but that's really about it. They kind of really do get sidelined in like season 2. Robbie is just a dorky guy who comes to school the same time Andrew does. So when Frankie's trying to figure out who's the android and everything, when they find out what James Peters has done, they think it's him because of his weird, bizarre nature. He's always popping in and out of places, so they think that he's using his super speed. But he's just a normal, dorky, like, human and stuff. And he's somewhat intelligent and everything. And, like, he's just the dopiest of all characters. But he's so cool in his dorkiness. However, by season 2, he is completely written out. And he's only mentioned by Tammy once, saying he just left with Byron. Where did they go? It's never explained where they went and everything. They just wrote those two completely and utterly out of the show and then never mentioned again. Jenny Gaines. Jenny Gaines is the biological daughter of that Sigourney and Will Gaines. And basically she's your typical, like, you know, preteen adolescent. And like, you know, she doesn't like doing her chores. She's lazy. She tries to have the androids do it. At first, she can't stand Frankie, but then when her and Frankie hang out and she makes her like some kind of like giant cardboard castle in a movie theater, she ends up like, you know, liking her. And she does love Frankie to death. She will literally keep whatever secret Frankie has and try to prevent other people from like finding out. And so basically she spends a lot of her time with that of Frankie in the first season and mostly just keeping like an eye on her and interacting with her, but while still being kind of like the annoying kind of kid, you know what I'm saying? And so by season 2, however, she's constantly hanging out with Beto, keeping an eye on him and then using him because he's an android. Once that's like done, then all of a sudden they decided to make her a programmer who knows how to do code and all kind of stuff. She claims she learned from just watching her mom do it. But something that's sophisticated, being a young person, you just can't pick up that quickly. You know what I'm saying? But it was nice they gave her something more to do in season 2, because after she's done hanging out with Beto, she basically just hangs out with like her father. But then towards the end, she helps out a lot when she does like the computer coding and the hacking of Beto and stuff like that. Will Gaines is the husband father of like the show, and he's there for comedic relief. He's more laid back than his wife, and he likes to play video games, and he's all around cool type person, and he drinks constantly from like a mug that is a moose. And so for the most part, he's not smart and he can't figure out none of this Android stuff. In season 2, he gets a lot more screen time because the mom goes up into space and he has to do like a lot of the chores and a lot of responsibility and keeping an eye on Frankie. And so he's mostly there for comedic relief. Sigourney Gaines, she used to work for Egg, and she created all those androids. When she created Eliza and realized Eliza was too evil, she wanted to create the perfect android, and that is Frankie. But Frankie has a hard time understanding emotions. And so she's very stern and very protective of Frankie. But one thing that's odd is that she treats Frankie more like her real daughter than she does Jenny. That would have been some great conflict in the show, but it's Nickelodeon and they didn't want to go there. And so she's constantly paranoid and wanting to leave the city because she's afraid that, Egg or Warper might find them. But then once they're no longer a threat, in the second season, she's just there constantly wanting to, she's very stern when it comes to Frankie because Frankie keep disobeying her orders. She'll tell her, don't tell nobody you're an android, but at the same time, don't lie. Then she gets an opportunity to go off into outer space. And when she does, Warper uses that as leverage against that of Frankie to make Frankie work for them because they threaten to fling her into the furthest regions of outer space by hacking into the space station and stuff. Simone is introduced into season 2, and she's introduced to be a companion to that of Andrew to make him more cooperative and everything when Warper has him. She's based off of his programming and he's based off of Frankie's. Yet she acts more human than that of Frankie until she loses her memory files and has to be rebooted, and then she starts acting like a typical android, which is really hilarious. Her speech pattern changes and she doesn't understand anything. She also crushes on that of Cole. And so, but she also has a little bit of a crush on Andrew, which there's no huge rivalry between her and Frankie, which was a missed opportunity. And so we knew from straight up from the bat she was a spy for Warper and everything, but throughout the season she doesn't act like she is, so you kind of forget. Dr. Peters starts to become suspicious of her, but nobody wants to believe she's an agent working for Warper. But then throughout, like I said, the entire time, she doesn't act evil and stuff. But it's really odd because she is a spy. But then it's she's like I said before, she's a laid back teenager. She acts like a teenager because she's based off more off Andrew than she is Frankie. And she's always playing video games, watching TV, reading magazine books until the end, the very end of the show. When Warper people got found out, it's because she ratted them out. She sent the video footage to the FBI because one thing about Warper that's really odd and weird is that the government never gets involved and try to stop them because they don't know about them until now they do. And there's a mysterious silhouette figure that talks to her via in her internal sensors and stuff. And so we don't know who this mysterious being is. He's played by the creator of the show, or voicing him at least. And he wears a fedora hat and looks like he's wearing a trench coat, but he's all in black. So nobody knows what is he good, is he bad? Because he congratulates her on taking down Warper, and now he says stand by for your next mission and everything. So is she truly a spy, like a bad spy, or is she a good spy? That's the thing. And so how did he take control of her? So it's one of those huge things that left on a cliffhanger. Now, in the Colombian show, there is a mysterious android type girl, but she comes from like the future and she's on a mission to go to the past. Maybe they were going to do that with this Simone, or maybe not, or maybe they're going to do some kind of like modified version. Although it would have been really interesting to find out, like, what she's all like about. Dr. James Peters, he's a former egg employee and a friend of Sigourney. And so he starts off pretty nice, but then it turns out he just wants to be rich and famous by creating his own android. But he's not as good as Sigourney. So he steals all of Frankie's files and he creates Andrew. But the thing about Andrew is that he made modifications to Andrew to the point where he acts more human. He talks more human than that of Frankie. And he also caused him to be destructive and everything, and also to spy on Frankie. And so the thing about James Peters is that he's always monologuing to himself. He's constantly talking out loud about his plans like a cartoon villain, which is odd and weird because he's the only person who does that. And so he's a very arrogant, like slob of a man, and he treats Andrew like crap. Like when Andrew calls him father, he's all like, "Don't call me your father," and everything. Like, I am your creator and your master and blah blah stuff like that. And don't you get like some type of like human emotion towards me and crap like that. So then his thing is he wants to sell Andrew to that of Egg, but Egg wants to sell him to Warper. So that's what he does. Because he tried to set up, but then he also programs Andrew to try to like frame Frankie and like all this other crap, and he wants to be known as the best android creator like there is. By season 2, when Andrew is no longer there, he's sad and miserable and stuff. And it turns out that he really does love Andrew like a son, but he doesn't act like it in the first season. This is when they try to redeem him in the second season, but not too much. And I'm glad they didn't make him too mushy, but then he does get a little too mushy at times. When Andrew escapes and goes back home, he tries to make Andrew love it. They're talking about you can have whatever you want, this and that. He also takes in Simone, which he doesn't want to. But then he goes back to his old ways of wanting to be famous. He realizes that Warper will come after him and get Andrew, but not if everybody in the world knows about androids and stuff. So he exposes Andrew at school. This causes Andrew to have mixed feelings towards him, to where he doesn't trust James Peters no more, because he just wants to be like rich and famous, which causes conflict between those two. When James finds out that Simone is a Warper agent, he tries to tell Andrew, but Andrew will not listen. He helps the group out in trying to hack into Warper and this and that. And so by the end, him and Andrew, they make up and they become friends and everything. But they still keep his slobbish type nature and stuff, and a little bit of his arrogance. Andrew, like I just said, was the android created by the program of Frankie, based off her coding and stuff. And he's very lazy, he doesn't like going to school, he does bad in school, and he's the complete opposite of what Frankie is. But he's also a good singer, and he hates Cole Reyes because he has a crush on Frankie, and of course, Cole has a crush on him. So they're constantly butting heads and stuff. At some point, he gets accidentally revealed that he is an android to Dayton and Frankie when water touches his arm, and you can see his servos and stuff. So he lies constantly to Dr. Peters and everything about exposing his identity and everything, and he's really scared of James Peters. When he gets he tries to save Frankie from Warper, and they end up taking him. And so when they do, they want him to be their ultimate weapon, and they put him through all these drills and tests, hand-to-hand combat, trying to test his brain level and everything. But he's constantly adamant about not wanting to work for them, until they trick him with Simone. Then when they break out, Frankie and them try to break him out, but then they end up meeting and then they end up fighting like the guards and everything like that. And so when he's back with, like I said, with James Peters, he doesn't trust that dude. And so basically, he's just your typical angsty like teen. But then in season two, when he gets exposed, some people love him to death in the city and they treat him like a superstar and everything. Even the cops wants to take a selfie with him. But then you have people like Tammy who hates androids and makes his life miserable because he sees the prejudice of like humans. Speaking of Tammy, Tammy Gilroy, she is a true villain of this show, which is weird because she's so adorable looking. You wouldn't think she's a bad girl, but she is. And she's super smart, very snobbish, and a queen bee. And she has two little minions that would do everything she wants. She crushes on Cole and she crushes on Andrew. And because Frankie likes both those guys, she doesn't like Frankie. She also doesn't like Frankie because Frankie is very smart. Too smart, and to the point where she thinks there's something weird going on with Frankie. So throughout season one, she's constantly trying to expose Frankie. She thinks Frankie has like an earpiece in her ear and is like somebody's feeding her like information. And so she's constantly having the school getting their ears checked and like everything else. Then she does like a sleepover party where she's trying to like, spy on the house of like the Gaineses and stuff. And this is what causes Dayton and Jenny to realize, oh, they both know Frankie's secret. And so she's constantly trying to like expose Frankie. Then she thinks that Frankie might be like an alien, but then come up with the revelation that she might be an android. So then she's trying to figure out how to like expose Frankie as an android. So she figured she dumped water on her that could mess her up. So she literally tries to do a Carrie moment at the school dance, but it ends up backfiring on her. And she's so mean that like she wanted Frankie off the brain squad. And so at some point, Andrew, who's supposed to wreak havoc on the school, he does, and Frankie gets blamed for that. And so when the brain squad needs Frankie because she is the smartest, she ends up framing Robbie and everything to the point where he gets like expelled from school and she could care less. But then she later confesses and then she has to grant him 3 wishes by the principal. I told you the principal's weird, man. So then at that point, she ends up developing a crush on Robbie, which is weird because he is so not her type. But then they try to humanize her. Only for Dayton, she needs help like breaking into Warpa. So she has like Tammy like use her computer skills to hack their servers, which Tammy wants to actually do because she wants to get caught so she can prove to the world she's the greatest of them all and everything. But then she comes back and all of a sudden she's acting weird. She's polite and there's a computer chip on the back of her neck. Warpa implanted it. This is like the beta project of Warpa wanting to turn people into androids. Once it's activated, the 2 technicians can like take over like, her speech pattern and stuff. And so throughout season 2, the first half, she's constantly speaking like in slang and it is hilarious and stuff. Only for her 2 best friends be all like, why are you talking like that? And she's all like, what are you talking about? Because like I don't remember talking like that. And so they record her and she's shocked and surprised she's speaking like that. So then once like Frankie and Dayton just ripped the like chip off the back of her neck, she's back to being normal and stuff. And so then she spends the remainder of the season basically hating on androids once she finds out that Andrew is an android. She literally starts a hate group called NA, which means no androids here. And the hate group is so effective that the entire, like half the school turns against like Andrew and stuff. And so this causes Rachel to create Ya, which means yes, androids here. But then it gets to the point where her friends don't like her prejudiced nature and stuff. So then she tries to flip it all around and tries to be all like, well, he used to have a crush on me and he can't be all like messed up. And, so then she drops her hate group, but her hate group continues, which are picked up by two new guys and stuff. And so then it's constantly back and forth with her trying to figure out who in the school is an android. So she creates this dumb test that everybody ends up failing, but she refuses to take herself. She's very vindicious in everything. But then towards the end, she realizes she was wrong for hating on androids because she tries to use Andrew to be on the brain squad. And he's kind of like, dude, why do you want me on your brain squad to help you win when you cause everybody to hate on me and stuff? So towards the end, she has like a change of heart and, stuff like that. She is vicious and one of the best teen villains I've ever seen because she's not too evil and she's not too nice and everything. Now, there is some debate because she is a person of color and she's playing a villain because she is of Indian like heritage of some type, some type of Indian or Muslim type heritage. And so that could be controversial because, America's always making them the bad guys in movies and television shows. But there are other people in this show of other races, like white, who are also the villains. So I guess they could say they can kind of balance that out a little bit, Pegs One. Pegs One is a robotic egg-shaped like assistant to that of Mr. Kingston. And he's there for nothing more but comedic relief, and he has the ability to hover, and he works for Egg. And so basically he helps Mr. Kingston try to find Frankie and everything. And he's very, very, very loyal to that of Mr. Kingston, even though Kingston treats him like crap. When Warper takes a hold of Pegs, this starts to upset Kingston and everything. And it shows that Kingston really does like him. When Pegs is able to escape on his own, he's then crushed by a car when he flies out into the street. After that, Kingston tries to repair him only for Warper to take him because they want Frankie. After that, we never see Pegs again or even mention of him in season 2. It's almost like he just never existed. Mr. Kingston is the head of Egg, and he wants an android badly. And he wants the one that Sigourney made. So he's constantly trying to get Frankie in season 1, and he's very evil and stuff. Turns out he wants to sell it to Warper so he can get lots of money. And it's found out in the season 1 finale that he is actually the father of Cole in Dayton, but he's using an alias because Kingston is not his real name. But by season 2, okay, like his real name, which I forget, they changed his name from season 1 and season 2, and they keep reminding us of his new name when they keep repeating it over and over and over. Why they changed his name, I have no idea. And so in season 2, he's no longer working for Egg, and now he's back home with the kids. Thing is that we never see their mother, but apparently him and the wife are like divorced, and he gets an apartment of his own, and he wants Dayton and Cole to live with him. And it's kind of like, well, why can't they live with the mom? So that's never really explained all that well and everything. Plus, he's never really been there in his kid's life because he works out of town, and they knew nothing of his different lifestyle until they found out in the finale. So it's kind of odd that they never showed the mom and why they're forced to live with him. And so the thing about him is that when it comes to him and Cole, he wants Cole to better himself and be smarter, but Cole doesn't want that. Cole just wants to play tennis, which his father doesn't like. But then all of a sudden, his dad becomes the ultimate cheerleader type coach and wants to do everything he can to make Cole the best like tennis player of all time. When he's captured by Warper and everything, they use that to get Andrew, which doesn't make no sense. They didn't, not Andrew, but Cole. They didn't need Cole and they didn't need Kingston because they had a great way of getting that of what's her name, Frankie and stuff. And so, but in season 2, they try to make him into like a nice guy all of a sudden, which is really weird because he's really evil and stuff. Cole, like I've said before, is the brother of Dayton. He's best friends with Byron when Byron got written out. Cole doesn't even mention the dude or nothing like that, which is weird because, that's his best friend. But he is madly in love with that of Frankie's. Love at first sight. But he has no idea she is an android. Tammy crushes on him in season 1. The crush goes away in season 2. Also, her crush on Andrew goes away in season 2. And Cole is very stupid. He's dim-witted and he is not smart whatsoever. To the point where Tammy and Frankie have to like tutor him. It's found out towards the end of season 1 that he finds out Frankie is an android. And once he finds out in season 2, in the first half, he's constantly overprotective of her. And, he doesn't want nothing bad to like happen to her, which comes very annoying. Like he becomes a second like Jenny or Dayton and everything. But then after all that, he even sacrificed himself to save Frankie from Warpa by getting hit by an energy blast. Now, the energy blast is not supposed to affect humans, only androids, but yet it knocks him out for some bizarre reason. And so, like, the remainder of season 2 after that, he just plays tennis. And he's debating if he should go to this all elite, like, tennis school or leave everybody behind. And so, but he doesn't want to leave them until they finally tell him, he can't. When he finds out Frankie is going to have to kiss that of Andrew in the school play, he becomes like very pissed. And he gives her the cold shoulder to the point where he'll either give her just the nod or just walk past her and won't look at her and stuff, which causes her to be really upset and confused and stuff. It turns out that Warper wants him because they know he sacrificed himself for Frankie. So if they have him, Frankie will go work for them. But that still don't make no sense once you find out about the whole Warper thing. And then so they kidnap his dad and stuff. And the whole elite tennis school was like all a ruse and everything. So apparently then they flip the script and they want him to be the prototype for their, or I guess like the test subject for their android, like their cyborg thing. Where, see, the thing is, when it comes to like Warpa, which I'll get into a little bit later, they have like, they want to take over the world, and so they want to turn humans into cyborgs and stuff because they feel androids are superior. Towards the end of the season, him and Frankie kiss and everything, and she grows her like holographic heart, which is left on a cliffhanger. But then Cole is the one who actually saves the day from Warpa because, they blast him with the energy weapon. He's all like, it don't work on humans. It only works on androids, which don't make no sense because we saw in the first episode of season 2, or at least the second episode, it does work on humans and stuff. So it's almost like they forgot. Season 2 is just different. Let's just put it like that. Beto is the little kid android of that Cynthia Mondale. And Beto, he's programmed just to be like a kid. He's not really all that advanced and stuff like that. So he acts like a troublemaking type kid. And he spends a lot of his time with Jenny. And Jenny's able to hack into his systems and use him as like a spy. So he's not good or bad. It's just however you program him, he will act. And he has super strength. And he's a really cool character and stuff. Now, once the end of the season comes, he is later adopted by the Gaines family. Because the woman who created him, Cynthia Mondale, is actually the head of Warpa. See, she pretends to be, well, she is a friend of Sigourney and everything, but she pretends to be nice throughout the entire season. And you really think she is, like you don't suspect her at all. And so when it turns out she is the head of Warpa, then it becomes like a whole James Peters or Kingston thing where it's all like, oh, somebody knows Sigourney, so they turn out to be evil. If there were to be a season 3, you can tell who the evil person is going to be as long as they're friends with that of Sigourney. And so, like, her whole thing is that she wants to have androids work in, like, the military so they can fight, like, their enemies and stuff. But she also wants to control the world. She wants to implant people with cybernetics because she feels androids are superior and stuff. So And she also wants to control the continent functions like she did Tammy. And she is extremely evil to the point where she captures Kingston Cole and threatens to hack into like the space station and send like Sigourney and the rest of the people flinging into space or into the sun. So this causes Frankie to work for her. Now this one doesn't make no sense. They've wanted an android for the longest time, and when they can't get Andrew, they want to go back to their original subject, which is Frankie. But I don't think she knew who Frankie was at that time. But then once she does meet Frankie and her, because she doesn't know the name of Frankie, but then once she sees Frankie video files of them breaking into Warpa and stuff, she then knows halfway into the season who Frankie is. So all she had to do is when she's doing a maintenance check on Frankie is just shut her down and take her to Warpa. But she creates this elaborate scheme of kidnapping Cold and kidnapping Kingston and all this other crap and threatening to hurt Sigourney in space. I mean, she didn't have to do all of that because she literally is in the house every day and playing around with Frankie's systems and stuff. Not only that, but they had Simone. But apparently Frankie's program is so superior than everybody else's that no matter how much you duplicate it, you need that original code and stuff. Which doesn't make any sense, especially if they just duplicated everything from Frankie into Andrew and into that of Simone. And not only that, but they had the other androids from Egg that they could have reprogrammed and made better. And Warpa knows how to make an android. Like they made Simone, and Simone acts more human than that of like Frankie. So it's a little bit of a convoluted type thing. And so, but of course she's defeated and she goes to prison and stuff. When it comes to season 2, like I said before, season 2 is fun. Like it's very energetic, it's very action packed, but it completely diverts from that of season 1, where season 1 was more about like, emotion and like a coming of age type story of an android wanting to be more human. So that got completely like abandoned and everything. And, with the inconsistencies in the writing and the plot motivations and the different tone in season 2, a lot of fans kind of started to dip out, but not too much. See, season 1 had about like 1.6 million like viewers and stuff, but then by the start of season 2 it went to 90 million, and then it started dipping into like 70. So it was around 90, 80, 70 throughout the entirety of season 2. And just like I said before, the reason why it got canceled is because the actress who plays Dayton on her YouTube channel finally revealed why the show got canceled. And it's because there was a new person becoming like, I guess like the president or CEO of Nickelodeon Studios and stuff. And so with every new president that comes in, they pick and choose what shows they want to keep or what they want to get rid of. And so he wanted his own style of like television shows of things he liked. And Frankie's show just wasn't that. So they canceled it, even though they had like good ratings and stuff. But it was also probably a decision based on like ratings of the second season. They didn't dip too much, but they wasn't like iCarly or True Jackson type numbers, So, he just decided to up and cancel the show, which kind of sucks in a huge way because I really enjoyed the Frankie show and I hate that it left off on a cliffhanger. But I do feel a lot of the changes in season 2 really kind of like did the show in because fans were just kind of like, things just started getting a little too unrealistic. The whole government conspiracy thing, how certain characters in season 1 get completely written out. Then like, people names change all of a sudden in season 2, and that's just kind of weird. And it's just like people's motivations. Like, remember I said the two guys took up Tammy's like hate group and everything, and they was really hateful and everything, even to the point of trying to fight like Andrew and stuff. And then in the finale, when they're still doing their hate thing, because nobody else wants to be part of their group stuff for those two, and Tammy's all like, give it a rest, and then the guy's all like, hey, you want to play like lacrosse? And he's like, yeah, that's sweet. So then they give up their hateful ways and go play lacrosse. And it's just kind of like, really? You spent the whole season hating, and now all of a sudden you're no longer bigots and you just want to play like sports. So it's writing like that that caused like some fans to kind of want to dip out and everything. Because then they started being that typical teen Nickelodeon type show, you know? Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.